On this episode, Dave goes on a rant again, and we talk about intentional camera movement, also known as ICM. And we talk about this a lot, all in the iPhoneography podcast. It's Monday, January 16th, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. My name is Greg McMillan, and I'm joined by my good buddy, Dave Podner. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Greg, how's it going today?
It's going pretty good. We are going to talk about a really cool technique that I've known about, but that I've learned a little bit more about, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But first, Dave has a little rant.
Yep, hold on. Let me get on my soapbox here. Hold on. Hold on. I gotta stand up, get on the soapbox here. Okay, so this is a rant that people have heard me say about iPhones before, and I will be ranting until they fix I don't want to say fix it, redesign to fix the issue. So this morning, went into work today, headed back to my desk. I like to go outside, get some fresh air when I head back to my desk instead of just walking in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And look up, we have beautiful blue sky. And we have a crescent moon in that beautiful sky. And the way I walk, there's the kind of the trees with the sticks on them, but these things are kind of thick branches. So you have the moon through the branches.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to take a decent picture because it's very bright. So it isn't like a night photo where you have contrast issues. You know, I try using reflex camera, which has worked in the past for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried and all raw, taking it using the built-in app, blurry moon. I try to zoom in on the moon, which has worked in the past for reflex. I know they've had a major update. Blurry moon. This is where I think for photography, I know this is hard, and only physics can really help you to a point.
Yeah.
Software to a point. This is a physics issue. I'm really hoping the 15, when it comes out, with its supposed USB-C port, they're getting rid of Lightning, just like everything else, periscope zoom. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to buy a phone this fall, but if they come out with a periscope zoom this year, next year or year after, when I go buy a phone, it will be more on the perfected side. But
right, yeah.
Other phone/camera manufacturers are doing periscope zoom. Samsung's doing it. Huawei's, all these. It's time.
Yeah.
Just like Apple was late.
I won't disagree.
Apple was late for OLED. Apple was late with OLED. Other phones came out with OLED. It's time. It's. I know they're having their own issues with supply chain. Finally, I don't want to say finally. Apple's getting hit with supply chain issues. A year and a half after everyone else got slammed.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for the periscope zoom.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah. Well,
and
I'll put my lunch money on the fact that there will be one this year.
And I mean, I saw rumors of a 5x zoom optical, and that sounds not good enough. The 2.5 to 3 was a minor bump. It was a nice bump. It was a minor bump.
Well,
3 to 5 is not enough.
That's it's not too bad.
Yeah. No, agreed there. But if they say we're doing a 5x zoom and giving you 20x digital, that's not good. I mean, unless they're doing some major Google level software magic.
Digital zoom sucks no matter how you look at it.
Yeah. Oh no, agreed.
Really,
agreed. But it like Samsung and Google seem to do something where you can do like moon photos and other zoom photos, which make it look better.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Samsung 100x zoom gonna look crappy, but it's something.
Well, even if you went to 50, I mean, it looks pretty decent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I know. It's like literally I'm out there in sub-freezing temperatures with my coffee in hand. I put the coffee down and taking like 3 or 4 photos outside. My hands are getting cold and numb.
Yeah.
because I just was walking back. I didn't have my coat on, didn't have gloves. I was just walking back to my desk and trying to take pictures of the like, no, that didn't look, oh, that doesn't look, okay, I'll see what I can do in Lightroom Mobile since they're raw and pro. It still didn't work out.
Yeah.
I know limitation, but still, it's time, Apple. Give it to us, please.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. I feel your pain there. Um, and you know, if enough people complain about it, they might just finally do something about it. Um, do I think Apple hears this show? Probably not. I mean, maybe somebody from Apple does listen. I don't know. I hope they do. Um, but I mean, there's probably a lot of different people out there, um, with the same grievance, and you're right. It's time. Come on, Apple, get in with the program here, because there is some damn good phones out there running Android that have amazing camera systems on them. And I mean, I've seen YouTube videos recently where they even talk about the overprocessing in the 14 Pro. And do I see it? Sometimes maybe, but uh, I don't know. Maybe I don't pixel peep enough, but yeah, you're right. It's time time to really improve the optical zoom in the iPhone. Um, and that might even help in some cases, maybe with what we're going to talk about here tonight. Um, we're going to talk about intentional camera movement. And so that's the long name for it. We're going to call it ICM. Um, it's no pun intended, but it's kind of like a movement in, on Instagram and places like that, where there's a lot of people doing this. So basically what it is you're doing a long exposure, a few seconds, and you're moving the camera in some fashion. And, uh, you're coming up with a blurred image, but it can be very artistically done. So, okay, so what sparked this? There's a local photographer in the city I live, and he's in the photography club that I'm a member of, and he does this stuff. He has a gallery showing at the local art gallery, and he has about probably 20 maybe images that are blown up. Now he doesn't use an iPhone, or doesn't use a phone at all, so I'll get that out of the way now. But that's the only difference between the way he does it and the way anyone else can do it, is the fact that he's using a mirrorless camera, but you can do this with an iPhone. And that's going to be obvious to see here shortly. But so he has these images on display, and what was it, last Saturday he put on a workshop about how he does these things. And then so we had about an hour and a half talk in the gallery, sitting in amongst his images that are all on the walls there. And he was talking about them and how he did them and all this stuff. And then we went outside, and he was kind of helping people walk through the process of doing this. So it was very stimulating creatively for me. I'll be honest with you, I've never taken a workshop before. And I've put on a workshop about iPhone photography, but I've never taken one. And I thought it was very interesting, especially learning. Like, I mean, I could kind of almost figure out how he did some of this stuff, but looking at his photos, there was some things that, like, I mean, I had questions, and I couldn't figure out some of the way he got some of these images. So I'm going to pull up. I wrote a blog post about this, but there was something I wanted to get out of this so that I can bring these up. And okay, so and Dave, fire away with questions that you may have while we're going through this, because you had stated that you haven't really dabbled in this too much before. So um, now, is there any questions, Dave, that you may have before we start uh, going
Well,
through some of this stuff?
well, my question would be right now more on the preparation in terms of, do you have to have a pretty good idea what you want the photo to look like before you shoot? You know,
Uh,
you think of a scene and you're like, okay, like I see a tree and this is what I want to do with the tree. Therefore, here's the movements I have to do. And when you were doing this with your iPhone, did you have, I mean, you mentioned movement, but I'm assuming there's still, you still want to have controlled movement. It isn't just wild and out of control movement. Did you use a stabilizer or any kind of tripod to stabilize movement, or did you let the iPhone do its thing?
well, that's the joy of this, is that anything goes. Now, to answer your question about did I kind of pre-visualize what I wanted, after doing it for a while and getting to know what kind of movements produce what kind of effects, then you can start to pre-visualize, I think. But when you first start doing this, um, I think it would be kind of difficult to do. I mean, unless you really know your camera and what'll happen if you did this or did that. But the what I'm finding is that I'm just starting. I'm just kind of playing around with it, and I'm I've only done maybe 2 or 3 sessions of shooting like this, and but I'm starting now to realize, okay, if I want to do this, then I have to do this, or if I want the image to look like this is what I have to do. So it's kind of a learning process. The guy that did this, his name is Nicholas Bent. He's in the local camera club, and his images are just absolutely stunning. And uh, he says it's like when you're talking about, could you visualize it and all that stuff? It's like a dance. Um, he's a very artistic guy, and he says it's like dancing with your subject. Because you go through the process and you preview the image, and if it's not what you like, then you do it again, and it's going to be different every single time. It's just like an ongoing dance with the subject. So so pre-visualizing it, I think it can sort of be done, but you could pre-visualize what you think you're going to get, but when you actually look at it after you're done the shot, it may or may not be that. And chances
Mm-hmm.
are it likely won't be, because it's such a random thing that you're going to get. So I kind of pinned it down to four things in the process. Um, Now, I've been starting to call long exposures on phones exposure sequences, because really that's what they are. They're layering images upon images and then blending them together and all this stuff. So to me, it's an exposure sequence. And so the first thing about this is the length of the exposure sequence. Now you can use reflex if you've purchased the long exposure part of it. You can use slow shutter cam. You could even do this with live photos in the Apple Camera app.
Mm-hmm.
Um, any app that can do like a long exposure sequence like this, you can use. Um, there's one that Bill Counts. He's been a listener since our Tiny Shutter days.
Mm-hmm.
He brought to
Yeah.
my attention called Blurristic, and he said he's been using it, since when we were on Tiny Shutter. And I checked it out because he posted one. I think it was, I'm not sure which Facebook group it was in, but he posted an image and it was really cool. So I thought, okay, I'm going to check this app out. Now, for me, it was $7, and I thought there's no free version. It was just you buy it and you got it. That's it. So of course, you know me, I had to get it and give it a try. And what sets it apart is it does not necessarily auto tracking, but it gives you a means of tracking a certain specific spot in your image, and I'll get to that shortly. But as far as apps go, there's a bunch of different apps you can do. You can do it with even longer. You can do it with re-expose if you want to do raw. And Nicholas, when he put on his workshop, he does everything in raw so that he captures all the detail and he has everything to work with. So myself, I tried raw the day that he did this workshop, but it was so cold out that day that I mean, my hands were shaking and the phone was, it was just shaking and I couldn't get a decent shot. So I gave up at that point. But I thought, okay, I'm going to try to get better at the technique before I try to do raw. So I've been shooting in JPEG or Hike or whatever it is. But you can use any of those apps to get it. And like I say, you could even use a live photo and set it to long exposure in the edit or in the choice of the end product there. So the exposure length, and what I've discovered is that around 5 to 7 seconds is a pretty good length of time. So live photos, you may not have as good of effect as with any of the other apps, but I find 5 to 7 exposure or 5 to 7 seconds works pretty good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, if you're listening on your phone, I'm going to put some images on as we talk about as I talk about this process here. If I can just find the darn things.
Sure. Well, while you're looking for that, Greg, I noticed when I went to his Instagram,
Yeah.
that he does a lot in either black or white or sepia tones.
Yes.
I mean, it seems like, and a lot of his pictures look either like sand sculptures or sand paintings, for lack of a better term, or etchings.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot
And
of
it could
that
just
has
be also the time of year too, but
well, and partially the editing process that he does.
yeah.
He does a lot of uh excuse me. He does a lot of black and white edits, or he also does some where he just desaturates to the point where the color is almost gone but not quite. And he but he said he does have colored images, like full color images that he's done. He just doesn't really post too many of them on his Instagram. I think he likes to keep the theme alive, where they're all very similar in look and whatnot. So, but he has done some in color. So on your screen right now, and if you can't see it on your screen, go to the website. They'll be there too. You'll see right now you'll see a tree where this was a 7-second exposure, and I basically walked around the tree to try to keep the same distance from the tree, and I wanted to let's see, let me look at my notes again. So okay, I'll stick with the exposure length first. 7 seconds I found was good, a good one. You can go shorter, you can go longer. Some apps will actually have a bulb setting, so you can start the exposure when you start the process and finish it when you're done. But I found 7 seconds to be a pretty good length of time. Now, you're moving the camera, so speed of movement has an effect on this too. The slower you go, the more dense the image looks. So looking at the tree on the screen or on the website, now this is in the winter, there's no snow on the ground. It was there was brown leaves on the ground and all that stuff. And as I was moving, I went kind of slow, and because I mean, I wanted to show the movement, but I didn't want it to be too dense of an image, but I didn't want it to be too ghostly either. So I moved kind of slow, but not too slow. So, I mean, folks, you're going to have to really play around with this stuff to see what all this is like. But, just find the right, you try the shot. And then if it looks too light, meaning too ghostly or whatever, then slow down. And if it looks too heavy, then you can speed up a little bit. You'll get the feel for how fast you need to move to get your shot. Um, Next is where to point the camera. Now this is huge, because I mean you want a good composition, and I mean this is no different than taking a still shot. I mean you want to get it good, well composed. You want all the elements of the image in the right place. So for this particular shot of the tree, I had the tree on the left third of the image, and um, there's a lot of roots at the bottom, and I wanted that to take up the bulk of the lower half of the frame. So when I started, I pointed or I composed the shot as if I was going to take a still. And then before I tapped the shutter to start the sequence, I started moving, and then I hit the shutter. And then as I was moving around, I tried to keep the tree in the same spot in the frame. That way it kind of builds that image in the same spot in the frame. And then you can even pause to let it build a little more and then carry on again. So I know this is a little hard to maybe visualize, but that's a big key element too, is as you're going through the motion, pause just for like a half a second or a second out of your, like, if I'm going to use the example of 7 seconds here, pause for about 1 second and then go again. And again, try to keep that, if it's a tree like this, try to keep the tree trunk in the same spot on the screen, and then carry on and finish off your exposure. And with reflex, you can actually, like in reflex, Camera Plus, I think, can do it. Slow Shutter Cam, I think, can do it. All these apps, other than the ones that do RAW, I think even longer now, you can actually see the preview. But you can watch the image build as the time goes through. So you'll be able to see if you're getting off course or not. And but the thing is where you want to pause. So like the big thing about pausing during the whole process is to let the image build so that it gets a key element of the image and it really stands out. The next one we'll look at is this pile of rocks that was down by the Bayside in town here. What the heck it's doing there, I don't know, but it's like a big old empty parking lot or something, and these just a pile of rocks sitting there. And as I was going around, now this isn't really a pause, but this is where Blurristic really shines. If you want to have a really good key part of the image tack sharp and the rest of it all blurry, Blurristic, what it does is it gives you a target. It's almost like the focus reticle of a camera, and then there's a dot, and if you keep that dot right in the middle, that part of the image is going to be sharp or relatively sharp through the whole process. It's a little tricky to do, but it really works good. And that's what I did here, is that right in the middle of the screen, you'll see that the rock shows a lot of the detail still, as if it was a still image, kind of embedded into the motion image. And that's, again, it's tricky. It's hard to do. It's with Blurristic, it's kind of hard to keep that dot in the center as you're moving around, because you're walking, right? You're taking steps, and you could be. I was. And Blurristic doesn't have a timer, where it shows you how many seconds you're shooting, but I think it goes for about 5 seconds, and you have to hold your thumb down on the button as you're doing it, and it only records while you're holding your thumb down on the button. I don't know how many times I've tried it, and I go to hit the shutter, and I let go, and then bang, it's just like a
Mhm.
still shot because I keep forgetting. Oh yeah, with that app, you have to hold down the button. But it's good for isolating something in your scene to really show some detail. Like I say, it's almost like overlaying a still image over top of the ICM image. But so that's pausing and whatnot, where to
Mhm.
pause in your image. So basically, those are the four elements here: the exposure length, the speed of the movement, where to point the camera for composition and whatnot, and then
Mhm.
where to pause when taking the frame. So as far as movement goes, you can move side to side. You can just move the camera in your hands. You don't have to take a step. You can go in and out, like closer to the subject and pull
Mhm.
it back. Um, if you're going to say, if you're going to walk towards something, take a couple of steps, pause, and then take a couple steps again. And then what you'll see there is you'll see all the motion blur, but then you'll see your subject a little more uh, defining in the image. Um, Again, folks, this is something you
Yeah.
got to play with to really understand how it all works. But it
Yeah,
is a lot of fun.
because and a lot of the photos have a impressionistic look about them.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like a soft painting that shapes, but sometimes you can't tell exactly what the shape is.
Right. Yeah,
For your rock pile, it's very very clear right in the dead center. You can
yeah,
actually see the grain. You can actually see the cross grain
yeah,
on the one rock, which is kind of dead center and I don't want to say looking at us, but that's what it looks like. It looks like the rock's kind of straight at us.
yeah. And that's like I say, that's blurristic with where it
Hmm.
excels is it gives you that target to hold right in that spot as you're moving. And that's what if you go to the app, we'll have a link in the show notes for the app. If you go to the app store, you can see I think there's a couple of videos on there how it does that, and you can really isolate some pretty cool parts of your subject, like whether it's a tree or a car or something, like a car moving, you can pan, and if you get right on that car as you're panning, the car will look crystal clear, but everything else will be a blur. There's so many different um, ways to use this whole ICM thing. So we'll look at one final image here real quickly to do with the process, and this one I took just today, and it's just a small little pine tree with even smaller ones beside it, and all I did was
Hmm.
I walked around it again, and I used Blurristic for this one because I wanted to try that target thing again, and I put it right on the main trunk or branch of the little tree. This tree was only, I don't think it was even as tall as I am. It might have been a little taller, but it wasn't that big,
Mm.
maybe 6 feet. And I just kind of went around it and nailed the shot. There's a whole bunch of trees in the background, and they just look
Mm.
like a bunch of sticks or whatever.
Hmm.
Of course, it's stick season, but
Oh, yeah.
so and then the other thing about this whole thing is your editing. Uh, so far, I'm seeing why Nicholas Bent does them in black and white. At least this time of year, they seem to look really cool. Um, we don't. There's not a lot of color, things like that. I
Hmm.
mean, the image with the rocks. It was a nice sunny day, the bright blue sky. But today it was a dull day, and
Hmm.
there was a skiff of snow on the ground around these trees. And I just, I think it looked pretty good in the black and white. I try to boost the contrast a little bit, really bring up the lights or the highlights and the
Mm-hmm.
whites and darken down the shadows. And then I even gave it a little bit of a white vignette just to draw more attention to the center of the frame. So, I mean, you play around with your
Mm-hmm.
editing, things like that. Same with that first one of the tree. I did that with that one as well. Um, Brought up the highlights, darken the shadows, and a lighter vignette. I'm so used to doing a dark vignette, and that's what I like about this whole thing, Dave. Is it's opening up my mind to do something a little more
Mm-hmm.
creative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's something that I
Not
vowed to
the
do
same
this
old,
year.
same old.
Yeah,
Yeah, not the
exactly.
same. Not. Or I shouldn't even say the same old, but falling back on what you find comfortable and familiar,
Yes,
which can
exactly.
limit your expansion artistically.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Going to that workshop just kind of did it for me. I, like I say, I've never been to a workshop before, and it was so cool to learn something new like this. I mean, like I've done ICM before, but just to say, okay, oh, that looks cool. But now, there's so much more that you can do. Like
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas had some images in the gallery, and these prints were blown up like, oh gosh, it looked like it maybe 4 by 5 feet.
Mm.
And he had one of a big maple tree, and you could see these streaks. I don't know if I can find it on his Instagram or not, but some of the leaves were actually, you could make it out that they were leaves, but yet then some of them were just streaks. So I had to ask him, how did you get this one? And it was a drive-by shooting. He was driving um
Oh.
like on a gravel road back in the middle of nowhere, about maybe 10 miles an hour or whatever it was, so slow that he just, and while he was like this going down the road, and I'm looking forward, folks, at the road, he was holding his camera out like this, and he does a lot of this stuff without even looking at the camera. He just hit the button, held it, turned it to what he thought, where the tree was, and
Mm-hmm.
he nailed the shot. But he's been doing it for quite a long time. And I mean, it's cool stuff. But y'all didn't hear me say
Mm.
that he was driving. But like I say, it was in the middle of nowhere. It was on a gravel road. There was no one around for miles, and he
Right.
was going slow. So, um, but this
Mm.
stuff is very interesting and very fun to try. So, so
I mean,
that's
that is one of the main advantage that we have, and I would say well, I would say if you're a younger photographer, you may not realize the advantage you have of trying something and basically being free to
yeah,
experiment.
yeah,
It's like, oh, I want to do this. Well, go do it. There's no one stopping you. There's
exactly.
no little man who lives in a house in the middle of a parking lot that will take a week or a week and a half to get your photos back to you to see if they turn out
Oh,
good, and
oh, I would not want to
it's
try
very
this
very
on film.
expensive. No,
But yeah,
and,
it's
it's true for just regular DSLRs or any kind of mobile photography. It just makes it easier. Here, give it a try. Well, just give it a try.
yeah, oh yeah. And
And this is one advantage of having like an in-person local group too.
yeah, yeah. And I would say probably every community has somebody that does this, or has tried it.
Hmm.
Look around your local community for pictures that people have taken, whether it's on Instagram or wherever, and you're bound to find somebody on there that's done it. Um, but it's a real fun thing to try, and then once you get out there and once you start trying it, you're going to want to try it with everything: trees, cars. It doesn't matter what you like. I did it in the house here with some flowers on the table. Even,
Hmm.
just the effects that you get are so cool. So, so that's intentional camera movement, and it's a lot of fun,
Hmm.
and it is a movement, because there are some people that do this almost exclusively. Like
Oh
Nicholas,
yeah.
he does a few other things, but that's what he's known for is his ICM. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So any more questions on it, Dave, before we move into?
Well, let me now you saying you're not doing it in RAW. So for
Not
post
yet.
processing, okay. But for post processing, are you use can you I know you like raw power. Can you use raw power for non-raw?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm
I
actually
didn't know what
using
in
Darkroom
terms of
now.
post process. Darkroom. I'm sorry, darkroom. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
okay,
yeah.
I didn't know if you use basically your same post processing workflow for this
Well,
that you did for more still photos, or if there was different editing software that had better results than what you were using for mostly still photography.
if you're doing black and white, an app like Dramatic Black and White or Carbon is another one. Some of these apps that are really really black and white oriented, they
Mm-hmm.
may do a really good job. I just find Darkroom does just as well on a JPEG as it does a RAW in this respect because
Mm-hmm.
uh, I mean the only difference in the interface in Darkroom between a Pro RAW or a JPEG is that it's the Pro RAW has that um, uh, local tone mapping slider, whereas if it's not a RAW,
Mm.
then that slider is missing. That's the only difference.
Right.
So
Okay.
and another thing I'm playing around with in Darkroom is the color grading. So that's another show though. But it's a lot of fun, and at least
Mm-hmm.
this time of year, I'm finding black and white seems to be the way to go.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, others who want to try it, if if you find color is good, I mean, go for it. Anything
Yeah.
goes. Anything goes in this whole process, right from shooting to editing. You know, anything goes.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So that's ICM. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Give it a try. So now we'll get into our recent photos. And again, look at your screen or go to the website while we're looking at these. And we'll go through yours first, Dave. And
Okay.
so I've got them in the order that they came into me, if that's all
Yeah.
right.
That's fine. Yep. That's
Okay,
good.
cool. All right. So your first one.
Okay. So this first one, and actually, I made a real TikTok into this. And for those of us who remember the original Incredible Hulk movie,
Yes.
not movie, no, I'm sorry, not TV show from the
Mm-hmm.
70s.
Yep.
The ending credits had that kind of sad. It was actually, I think, called "The Lonely Man," the ending song.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so I did a TikTok with the song over this picture,
Oh, yeah.
just because it was so. There was no snow on the ground. It was cold, but no snow on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and just walking up a long hill, and you can see where I did this in Snapseed, where I did the kind of. And the nice thing in Snapseed, you just don't put the focus in the middle and you're stuck. You can
Right.
move it off and get that. So I put the focus on where the road was going,
Yeah. Yeah.
and this was actually on the way to the start line for a race.
Oh, okay. And just for people who
I
can't see it right now,
Yeah,
just like
right.
give a real quick description of what we're
Yeah,
looking
yeah. I
at.
would say it's a black and white photo. People kind of walking. It was rather slow walking up a windy, twisty hill.
Okay.
Lots of trees with no leaves or anything. Leaves on the ground,
Yeah.
off the road, but and um, just the focus is on the road, but it's a radial blur. So as you're
Yeah.
getting around the outside, it just gets blurrier and blurrier and blurrier.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this looks great in black and white.
Yeah.
Color would just not have the impact, I think.
Well, yeah. And
But
honestly, I took one photo where there was like one tree or one bush that was green, everything else was kind of brownish gray,
Hmm.
but it still didn't poke. So yeah, because the only color really would be the yellow stripe on the road. And I could have made that yellow, but I think that would be kind of gimmicky. Just
Mm,
having that one color. It could be, could not be. And then whatever colors everyone else's clothes were,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Well,
So yeah, this was
I think you nailed the composition. I love the composition
yeah,
because
yeah.
from the lower left, I mean, you got the yellow lines right starting at the very lower left corner,
Mhm.
and then it goes up towards the center of the frame, and then the road kind of flattens out, and then you can see the S curve in it. I mean,
Mhm.
compositionally, it's perfect. You've got
Oh,
just the
thanks.
amount, just the right amount of sky showing at the top, but it's blurred and it's overcast,
Mhm.
and there's no harsh shadows anywhere. It's all nice, smooth lighting, and the people are just going about their thing, heading up to the start finish line. And now, when you did this run, did you have to run up this to finish the race?
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
boy, they always do
Yeah.
it at the
Yeah.
end, don't they?
For this race. Yes, it's actually this race is actually known for its finishing hill.
Oh, okay.
So if you were there early enough, you could park up top, but there weren't a lot of spaces.
Oh yeah.
So if you weren't an hour and a half before start time,
Oh wow.
they shut the road off. Yeah, they shut off the road, and you have to park down the bottom. It's 3/4 of a mile, and it's around 300 foot climb.
Oh wow. So your legs are like rubber before you even start.
So you say yeah, so you got a nice little warm up on the way up, and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
road and the race is a loop, so you kind of start down a hill, so it's decently downhill, a nice flat mile and a half or so. It's a 5 mile race, and
yeah,
then so you're 4.25 miles, and then you make the right hand turn, you go up the hill to
yeah,
finish.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well, it's
and
cool.
it was mid 20s. It was mid 20s. So
Right.
it's a combination of hill, cold, everything going on.
Yeah. Well,
It's a fun race, though. It is a fun race.
yeah. I like the way you did that radial blur because
Yeah.
it puts the emphasis on the people and the curve in the road, and it makes you just kind of look around the image a bit at the other stuff, but not really.
Mhm.
It doesn't really
Focus on it that much.
it doesn't really take up too much of your time,
Mhm.
but it really puts the emphasis in that part in focus there. So that's really
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so your next one.
Yeah. And this was let's say 4:30 in the afternoon, so it has the late afternoon sky. And this is a pier not too far away from my house.
Oh, okay.
So there is a local rowing club, and this is where they're headquartered at.
Oh, okay.
So down on the river. So, and it was mostly clear. A little bit of clouds in the sky, but nothing too heavy. And just I love the way the two piers here kind of lead off, kind of to the right, with
Hmm.
the sun to the left.
They kind of both point
And
to that building across the river,
mhm, yeah,
which is
yeah,
cool.
the housing complex over there, yeah. And then just the way the sun just kind of reflects in the river itself,
Yeah,
coming kind
and
of straight down there. And
I really like the lens flare that's going on with that too.
yeah, yeah, and that's honestly that was by accident,
Oh
just
yeah.
because just looking into the sun.
Hmm. Yeah.
And this is kind
Um,
of down at the end of a road too. So I wasn't trespassing, but it wasn't exactly a very public place.
oh yeah. Okay. Um, I like the shadows on the boardwalk that lead out to the
Hmm.
platform, and uh, you could have oversaturated the sky and whatnot, but I'm glad you didn't. I don't know if you did much work with the color and whatnot, but I like the subtlety of it. And I mean, that way it's not looking too unrealistic. Did you
Mhm.
do much color work to it? Like in any?
I did some. I did some. It was more of the bringing up the shadows a bit,
Hmm.
to actually lessen how harsh the shadows were.
Right.
That is something I've noticed, that if you just let a lot of times the automatic go, you just get like a dark, you almost get like a purplish blue sky.
Oh yeah.
If you're like in Lightroom Mobile, or if you're in the built-in app, you just hit auto, it
Yeah.
ruins a lot of the teal and the lighter shades in the sky itself.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I did do some here just because, like I said, literally looking straight into the sun, that kind of not permanently messes up, but that messes up, you know, the color of the color balance on the lens itself. And I did
Yeah.
want to get some of the yellow in the sky and the blue in the, the blue in the water itself.
Yeah. 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 Well, it looks good. And the railing on the right going down to the corner has that nice gold cast on it from the sun. And the
Mm-hmm.
tree on the left, you can actually see some of the detail in the bark, which is good. So yeah, another good one. Number three looks like a dome.
Okay. Yeah, this is the Greek Orthodox Church, which is down in Oakmont, which is the next town over. And this was a early morning run, and I just, the sky was just clearing out, and I moved so the sun was just behind the dome here, the yellow clear, not plastic but glass dome they have at the top.
Yeah.
And when I took it, I also wanted to make it like a silhouette. So got it there, zoomed in. Again, this is where the zoom kind of breaks down, because the image, the original image was a lot bigger, and I cropped it to here, so it's a little on the soft side if you look at
Hmm.
it big on the screen.
Right.
Um, because I was on the sidewalk. This was, it's not a massive church, but it's a good sized church.
Yeah.
And I just like to have the cutouts. Um, and I didn't put it completely in silhouette. But you can still see a little bit of detail on the front
Yeah. Yeah.
of the
I was
dome,
gonna
but I
say,
just wanted that glow of the dome there.
yeah. I was gonna say that little bit of detail without being completely blackened out. I think it kind of still gives it some interest. You can see where the two sides come to a point, and it's just about dead center of the below the dome there. Um, and there's cloud detail. Um, the way the sun's shining through that dome is really cool. Gives it a nice color cast, and for being zoomed in as much as it was, you still got a fair bit of good detail, even in the
Yeah,
trees in the background,
yeah,
and the crosses on the dome and on the other part of the I don't know what facade. I don't know what that is
yeah,
exactly, but
yeah. Basically, it's just it's a weird thing. It's on top of the building. It's just a like a little arch faux
yeah,
window facade up there.
yeah,
So
almost like it was you know part of a structure of the building that maybe the rest of it's gone
mhm.
now or something. But
Yeah,
yeah,
which honestly it isn't. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a significance behind it, I should say.
yeah, yeah,
Not
yeah.
being Greek Orthodox, I don't know if there is, I know there's significant if you're for Orthodox, for the dome, having a dome
Hmm.
on top of a building. Because I see a lot of Orthodox churches and they always have domes on them
Oh yeah,
around here.
yeah,
But in terms of the facade there, I don't know if that was just what they wanted to make it look like, or if there's a significance. Not sure.
yeah,
I just, like I said, it just the cutouts make a nice little look to it too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's enough contrast there to kind of make it kind of pop.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So my three are, if anybody can guess, they're all ICM photos. um, now, we talked about how doing these in black and white can really make them interesting and artistic and painterly looking. But the first
Mhm.
one is actually one in full on color. Um, and I actually Okay, so what this is, if you can't see it right now, this is a picture of my wife walking our dog, and it's again it's so blurry that all you can see is her coat, and I just happened to catch her leg as it was mid stride, and it's kind of really prevalent in the frame. I was walking with her at the time, so I think that's why her leg looks like that. And then you can see the leash going way out in front, and the dog is completely out of frame.
Mhm.
But there's a bush of cedars in behind, and she's got a bright blue coat on. So what I did was I saturated the blues to really bring out her coat and toned down the greens a little bit, and that's actually a green grass at the bottom of the frame. And I did this in a square crop just to put her in the center of the frame,
Mhm.
because I think it worked out best that way. Had the dog been in the image, I would have, made it so that you could see everything of both her and the dog. Um, but yeah, and then again, like I mentioned before, I kind of bumped the contrast a little bit to, give the shadows a little more um, heaviness. I guess is maybe a good way to say it. But yeah, that's one of the first ones.
Yeah.
This was
Now,
yeah, Dave,
I want to say
go
the
ahead.
leash was the leash green, or is that because of the color adjustments you made? Because
It
it
could be
almost looks
because
like
of
a
the color
neon
adjustments.
green.
Yeah,
Okay.
it looks like that, but it's
Yeah.
actually a pale blue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's
because it almost
probably just the color adjustments. It's
because
almost like
if
she's
you
holding
didn't,
a laser.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say if you didn't tell me it was a leash, I wouldn't have. I kind of would have guessed something like a leash, but it
Yeah,
could have been something else. And also, that kind of breaks up the symmetry in a good way. You
yeah,
always tell people don't put stuff 100% unless you're going for that look.
yeah, yeah,
Dead center, 100% symmetrical it can look nice, but it can be boring. That kind of breaks it up and gives a little additional movement because the swing of the leg is almost symmetrical about her. There's
yeah,
there's
yeah,
as much ghosting in the front and in the back.
yeah. That's right. I did try to remove the leash with touch retouch, but it kept kind of making a mess of the in the
Yeah.
background where the trees and the ground meet. So I didn't like what it was doing there. So I just undid all that and left it the way it is. But
That's one thing I
daggum,
notice about touch retouch too. But if
yeah,
it's not, it works. First of all, for the cost for the price you're paying, it does an amazing job and how quick it does it.
yeah, yeah.
But if you have a line, like I was trying to get rid of some of the telephone poles and telephone wires
Mm-hmm.
on some of the shots around the church,
Yeah.
if you don't have a clear background, if you have a very complicated background, it can get confused.
Yes, that's right. Um, yeah, and you can even pick segments of line or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, I tried to remove a hydro line in one of my star trail images one time, and it actually screwed up the star trail. So I just left it back in.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this ICM stuff, and
Hmm.
um, this next one is another one that's I think really fun. Now, looking at that, Dave, can you guess what that is?
I would almost say satellite dish or solar panel because it almost looks like there's a pedestal there and it looks flat, but there's at least for me, it looks like a bright thing kind of leading from the center up to the left,
Hmm.
or even like kind of a a wood line carving of a sundial almost.
Well, those are, you see, now that's what I love about this because it leaves so much to the imagination. But
Hmm.
what this is a little square shack. And what you're looking at is the roof. So disregard that
Okay.
bright part that goes up. What you're looking at
Okay.
is the roof. Let me
Okay. I
do
can
this.
see the roof,
I'll make it easy
but
on you
the
by
bottom right, just the reason why I'm thinking the bottom right looks very pronounced
down in here.
of the roof.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that right there. That say that almost looks like a pedestal instead of
Yes.
a
Yeah.
corner of a building.
Yeah. So okay, so this is the roof here. This is the one side of the roof.
Hmm.
The other side of the
Yeah.
roof goes down this way to the right. And I'm sorry,
Okay.
folks, you can't see this, but I'm showing Dave because he's really using his imagination to guess what this is. And that's what I love about this whole thing. And then see this part here, that this is a square window
Okay.
right there.
And for those looking on the screen, if you look, you have that kind of, like I said, you have you can see there's a flat surface, like
Yeah.
a diagonal flat surface there. And if you
Yeah.
look to the right and down, that's where you can see the front windows. You can see the box, and when you're mentioning it, that I can see that it is a pitched roof, and we're
Yes.
seeing just one side of it. So
Yeah.
when you
And you
mention
could
it's kind of like almost like a magic. I don't want to say like a magic eye, but similar to where when you point out a pattern, you can see it once someone
yeah.
points it out to you.
Yeah. And if
You're
you
like,
don't
oh,
if
that's
it's
a really obvious. Of course, that's it.
yeah. Yeah, if it's not pointed out, then you're gonna guess and guess and guess. But yeah, like
Hmm.
this was again about I don't know if this was quite 7 seconds, but I just started by pointing at the building and then kind of holding it there to give it some definition, and then going down and then up to the left just to give it some weird shape and weird look to it. Obviously, trees in the background. You can see there's a big deciduous tree there, probably a maple without the leaves, and then a pine that's taken up all that
Okay.
dark
Yep.
area.
Hmm.
And then the rest at the bottom is just grass, and that really bright spot on the lower left of the frame, that would be where the driveway is. This is going into a conservation area where there's a waterfall, and that little shack, it's only about maybe 8 feet by 8 feet. It's not very big, and it's
Okay.
green in color.
Tiny little thing. Okay.
Yeah, and all that is that's where the people will sit there and collect like gate fees for people to
Okay.
come in and park. So
Gotcha.
what we do is we buy a parking pass for all the conservation areas around this area, and it's a lot
Hmm.
cheaper than paying every time you go in. So when we drive in, we just got to show our thing, and oh yeah, way you go, and away we go, because we go to these
Hmm.
places a fair bit throughout the year, so it's well worth
Oh,
it.
sure.
But yeah, so that's a shack, and you can't tell like that satellite
No.
dish idea is pretty clever, because now that I look at it after you said that, I see a satellite dish. And that's the nice thing about this ICM stuff, is you can make up your own story about the image,
Hmm.
no matter what it is. So yeah, that's a shack that looks like a satellite dish. uh, so in my third one, I took this one today, and this was in a small town about 20 minutes from here, and there's a campground that's obviously closed for the winter, but there's a big park area where you can go down and walk, and there's all these trees down there. And this was a tall, uh, I don't even know what kind of tree it is. It's not a maple because there's no branches near the ground at all. They're all way up high. So all you got is a trunk. So all I did was I did the same processes, excuse me, some of those other ones, where I started shooting and I just walked around, and I used that Bluristic app again. So you can actually see um, right about the center of the frame, going up on the trunk, you can actually see some of the bark that is actually sharp.
Hmm.
and in focus. And the rest of the area, like it's all just like snow covered ground, like just I'm talking just a skiff of snow. And then in
Okay.
the background, that gray area, that's the bay. That's the water.
Okay.
It's right on the right in the edge of Georgian Bay. And then of course the sky. The sky was sort of clear, but clouding over. Um, Top left of the frame, you can see some branches from another tree that just kind of snuck in there. And it 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 just looks like it's twisting. And when I posted this to Instagram today, I said, like the caption I gave it is the world going down the drain? Because this almost looks like it's kind of swirling and going, and the tree is
Hmm.
actually going down a drain. See, now that's the story that I got out of this. Um, and you know what? I just noticed this now, Dave. Right about halfway up the frame, where the water is, the gray water, you can see
Hmm.
numbers. You see the numbers there?
Oh, I do. I do now. Yes.
Yeah, well, there was a where all the trailers can park for camping. They're all the
Okay.
lots are numbered, and that's what that is. There was a
Hmm.
sign there with the numbers, and I just noticed that now.
I wouldn't have seen. I wouldn't have seen the sign. I wouldn't have seen the numbers if you pointed out. Actually, this is something where if you wanted to do a like paint either digitally or otherwise, paint
Hmm.
over it in watercolor,
Oh yeah, oh for
and
sure.
the darker area being put that like as a light blue aqua.
Hmm.
Maybe the tree trunk being having just a tinge of brown,
Yeah,
and then the sky being as a different shade of blue, but keep
yeah,
the white area at the bottom as white. You can almost make this tropical view
yeah.
here,
There was
is
an app I
the
used to
snow
use
being
called
sand.
yeah. There was an app I used to use called Watercolor. I don't know if it is still alive or not. I'll have to check it out. And if it is still alive,
I say, yeah.
maybe I can give a run this photo through that app
Hmm.
and give it that treatment that you just mentioned, because that's a pretty cool idea, is to make, give it some watercolor or like a painterly kind of
Hmm.
look. But yeah, and obviously on the colored version of it, not on the black and white, because I don't know if it would know what to do with the black and white, but other than make it
Mm.
softer maybe. But but yeah, it's just so much fun to come up with an image like this and then show it to people and see what they say about it. Like your idea of making it, doing like a watercolor or a painting is brilliant. I look at it as something going down a drain because I see the swirl, and
Hmm.
it's that's the fun part about this whole ICM thing is all the stories that can be told from a single image. So yeah, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So any other questions about ICM before we call it a night?
No, honestly, I think a lot of it is just trying it out, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and it may help to actually have someone in person because a lot of this is more, it feels like not necessarily technique on the phone or
Hmm.
technique on the world, but more technique of how you're holding the camera and how you're moving it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And little differences could make a huge difference on the, kind of like you could, like if I wanted to learn how to play the guitar, you could learn that by watching YouTube, but
Hmm.
you could be making a small little mistake that someone could look at it and go, "Oh, your hand should be okay, no, a little bit right there." See that
Hmm.
little
Yeah.
difference and see how it feels that way versus
Yep.
that, okay, but you won't pick that up unless you get a person having that feedback looking.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Um, I might do if I okay, so I've got a video I put out on my YouTube channel about my top 10 images of last year. I was a absolute nervous wreck doing that because I am not used to talking to the camera yet. So I might do a video on this
Only been doing a
ICM.
podcast. You've only been doing a podcast for how long?
Yeah, but it's so different because I'm talking to you. I could see you, right? When it comes to doing the podcast or a YouTube video, hang on a second.
Nope.
I'm looking at David Addison's mug.
Okay.
Because this is
Gotcha.
the case. This is the case I use. Okay, so folks, if you don't know the story behind that, Mike James, bless his heart, from Australia, sent me a case with David Addison's picture on the back. It's a phone case for my iPhone 14 Pro Max. I put this on, and when I'm doing a video, I look at David's face instead of just the camera, and it's making it easier to do because I'm not used to talking to a camera. But it's so easy to do the podcast because Dave and I are looking at each other live on video now,
Right.
and it's so much easier talking to Dave, even though he's hundreds of miles away. But I mean, it's a video call, right? So,
right.
It's different. It's definitely different. But I'm gonna get used to it. I'm gonna get used to it. I will make myself get used to it. But anyway, so there may be a time when I can make a video about how to do this. It'll be interesting if I do that. But that's a good way, for me to show everybody my method, and people can do it that way or come up with your own way. I mean, again, ICM is so wide open creatively that it's a pretty fun way to do photography, and the results you get are amazing. Not every shot's going to be a good one. I mean, I know that right now. If I go out and take 10 shots, I might only have one good one that I would want to work with. So it's a lot of fun. All right, well, I guess that's a show then. Dave, tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. You can find me on pretty much all the social medias as Prof Pod, on TikTok as Prof Pod PGH, and on the Facebook group as Dave Podner Jr.
All righty. You can find me on, well, go to about.me/McMillan, and that's where all the links are for my, Facebook and all that stuff. We got links in the show notes for the main ones that we go to, and you'll find us there. And we are going to put this episode out as a complete one. I should have mentioned that at the beginning because by now you'd already know that, I guess. We're going to go back to that and see how that goes again. And we thought we would try splitting the episodes up again. If you liked having them split up into two segments, let us know. Go to one of our social outlets and let us know, or you can, let's see, you can email me at greg@iPhoneography.ca and, let us know what you think. If we don't hear anything, then we're just going to assume that everybody's happy. So, thanks for coming along for the ride, everybody. Go to the website and check out the pictures if you want to get a better look at them. iPhoneography.ca, or the links in the show notes anyway. That's the best way to get there. And well, thanks, Dave. It was a lot of fun talking about this process. And
oh yeah,
I hope to see you try some of it sometime. And
yeah, definitely something to try and something new.
Yeah, for sure. And be careful because I think you might get hooked. I know I am. All right. Well, guess we'll see you all in the next one then.
Have a great one, everyone.